You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gear Handle. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit GearHandle.com and use promo code H2O today. The city was a sprawling jungle of concrete and shadows where the night had a habit of swallowing secrets whole. The neon lights flickered in and out like bad dreams, and the air was thick with the scent of rain and despair.
We're doing Spider-Man Noir.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about comic books, costumes, facts, boots, and other stuff.
In this week's issue, Spider-Man Noir.
Welcome into Bros, Foes, and Heroes. I'm Zach, joined as always by the, I should start thinking of these M words before the masked one, Mr. Mike.
There it is.
There we go.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Lot going on, moving and shaking. Decided last minute.
Moving and shaking.
We're recording this. This is going to come out on Monday. We're recording this on Friday. Peek behind the fourth wall. But decided just late last night on a whim to be like, hey, I really feel like going to see the new Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
So texted my brother, even though he had to go to work a lot earlier than I did today. He was down for it.
Oh, good for him.
And so we showed up at a 10:40 movie, which didn't start until like 11:30, 11:40 because of all the trailers, obviously.
Really? That many trailers?
Dude, I mean, it wasn't that many, but it felt like, it's one of those things, and this seems like such an old man thing to complain about, so I really kind of don't want to because I don't think I'm there yet. But it was one of those, at least if my younger brother's saying it, then part of me feels like, oh, okay. But he was just like, man, it'd be nice if we went to a 10:40 movie and it started at 10:40.
As you were talking about this, I texted my wife and said, we're going to see Deadpool this weekend because she's been out of town.
Yeah,
and so you offered to let me go last night.
I offered to let you go with me.
I felt really terrible.
You shouldn't.
But
No.
I would be in big trouble if I went
That's
without her.
fine.
So.
See,
Not trouble, but you know what I mean.
No, that's totally fine. I was either going to go see it by myself or be able to somehow convince, my brother was down for it.
Yeah.
So
that's good. I'm
no
glad you had somebody
spoilers
to go with.
whatsoever. I really enjoyed it. It's a Deadpool movie. I mean, you know what you are getting going in, and I enjoyed every single bit of it. So that is my review of it right now. We'll wait a couple weeks and talk more about it. And I'm assuming after we've both seen it to kind of go into it more. But until then, I'm not going to ruin anything for anybody. It is, if you like the other two, I think you'll like this one a lot.
Did you enjoy the Elon Musk cameo?
Don't remember that one. Got to be honest.
Okay.
I
was just taking a shot in the
Unless it was
dark.
just like a voice. No.
I'm just taking a shot in the dark as to who showed up.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you.
Barack Obama?
Well, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. There is no Elon Musk.
Oh, okay.
Camera. Thank goodness, I would say. But that's neither here nor there. Another thing to get into.
David Lee Roth.
Yeah, he's just singing I Can't Drive 55.
He's over on the side of the road. Just
but did you just drive
Wait,
like he's on him?
I Can't Drive 55.
Oh, that's
not him. That's Sammy Hagar.
That is Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, if Sammy Hagar showed up in that, then it's a second-tier show.
Here's the thing. Like, I'm having to reach to try to pull, like, hair metal music, Mike. So,
Are you?
That's not my genre.
The entire crew of Slayer shows up.
I know Whitesnake of Whitesnake.
Yeah, Whitesnake. There you go. That's one.
See, but that's
Do you know Great White?
Like the
They're
shark?
the ones, well, it's a band, but
No, it's a shark.
Or it was, and then they burned down an entire room full of people because the pyrotechnics hit one of the curtains.
Oh,
remember that?
I think I've heard this story.
It was only one way in, one way out.
Yeah.
That was rough.
I do vaguely remember the story.
Once
of that.
bitten,
I don't know
twice
the band,
shy.
But
that was their big hit.
Was what?
Once bitten, twice shy.
Oh, I do know that song.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, let's move on to something else. Before we get into today's
Rat.
comic.
The entire band
I do know
Rat.
of Rat.
Did they show up?
No.
Wasp.
They're on a Geico commercial, aren't they?
Rat? Oh, I think they are because there's rats in the attic. Yeah.
With two T's. Before we move on, just one quick
Donald
thing.
Trump.
We're done trying to guess cameos, and I'm not.
Okay, sorry.
So what we have, two things to cover real quick. First of all, if you missed it last week, there is flat versions of Mike and Us.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put it like right. This is going to work so well, like
it's editing
and me trying to. It's going to be like right here somewhere.
Remember, you're splitting the screen, so maybe put it here.
Well, no, it's going to be like between us.
Oh, okay.
I love how it may or may not show up with us just like pointing at stuff that may or may not be there. Wherever. Yeah. I'll put the link in the description again just because I think it's fun and silly and it's us.
Oh, it's great. I want people to cut us out and put us in terrible situations.
Yes. Color us too if you want to. Or you can just leave us black and white.
I mean, I don't see color, but, if you color us, you can just tell us.
But the thing is that it also kind of has a feeling of like some of those old black and white pulp comics that way.
What I mean by that.
The last thing to get into before we get into today's topic, which, I mean, we're already like 5 minutes in and I haven't told you. Spider-Man Noir. Is what we're going to get into. But before we do that, I decided to put up a poll on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. If you want to go check it out, Bros, Foes, and Heroes, to vote on what we would be doing next, because I like to get any sort of interaction from you guys that I can. Yeah. Put up the 4 books that I had, like, sitting down of like, oh, I'm thinking of doing these 4 next.
This was great, too. This is our first poll.
First poll, and it's something that I'm definitely going to do more in the future. Well, not only that,
first poll and over 2K.
Over 2,000 votes. So thank you guys.
For voting. That's awesome.
A lot. Thank you. One title ran away with it. I would say has almost half the votes, 49%. It's almost 1,000 of the 2,000
Kinks
votes.
Mason.
No,
can't wait to talk about Kinks Mason.
So Hellboy, Seeds of Destruction.
Yeah.
It's the first story. I think it's for the first 5 issues of Hellboy that Mike Mignola did. I think John Byrne actually did the script for it too. I've
told you this before. I love the first 2 Hellboy movies.
Yes.
Great movies.
And
I think the second one is freaking outrageous because Del Toro got to use everything in his bag, and it was very well done.
See, I've never seen any of the Hellboy movies.
Plus,
I haven't actually read the comics either. I know of, and I know things about. I've always loved Mike Mignola's art. He not only did like Hellboy, like he worked as like a work-for-hire guy a lot for like DC and Marvel, so there's a lot of stuff he did, but like he was the artist for Gotham by Gaslight. I know that he came back and did the Doom that came to Gotham for Batman stories, but there's other things. I'm pretty sure he was the penciler for there's a 4-issue 1985 Rocket Raccoon series that I think he did. That was some of his earlier work and stuff too. But anyway, it's art that I've always enjoyed, like the way it looked. It's a story that I have a feeling that I would always, enjoy reading. So next week we are going to do Hellboy, Seeds of Destruction. And I will probably have a new poll up on either Monday, today, or Tuesday.
Can one of those poll things be Sergeant Rock something?
You want a Sergeant Rock?
I would like a Sergeant Rock, yeah.
I will find a way to get Sergeant Rock in for Mike.
Thank you.
But yeah, so make sure to check out our YouTube channel for the next poll coming up to vote. I'll probably keep Wolverine Old Man Logan was second at 27%. I might keep that on there just because it was the next biggest vote getter.
Sure.
Wonder Woman Dead Earth, I've heard a lot of good things about, and I want to read. But I will at some point in time maybe just do that personally. Anyway, next week, Hellboy, Seeds, if I could talk, Seeds of Destruction. Let's go ahead and get into today's. I have my library copy here, as I so nicely blocked their barcode. But Spider-Man Noir.
What would it do?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just being...
okay.
But we have Spider-Man Noir today is what we're going to cover, which is essentially the story of Spider-Man back in 1933, Mike.
Noir. Look at him go.
He is. So...
It looks weird.
The cover, he's very much... We'll see... I liked more in this. I liked more the villains. Not to say that it's not a good story.
Yeah.
And that Peter's not enjoyable. I just
really
kind of like the way they did.
It's real weird to see Peter Parker with a gun.
It is. Well, that's the thing. This Spider-Man's a little bit different. This is also, I will tell you, they're working on I don't know if it's live action. I thought it was animated, but they're working on a Spider-Man Noir series at Amazon.
I think it's animated.
Cage. Yeah. That Nicolas Cage is supposed to voice because he voiced the character in the Into the Spider-Verse movies.
Well, Nicolas Cage is one of those actors that for $7.99 he'll show up at your house.
Did you ever watch The Weight of Unbearable Talent or whatever with him and Pedro Pascal?
And here's how much I enjoyed it. Okay. Brought it up to my wife the other day, and she goes, "We watched that," and I was like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, it was kind of funny." It was okay.
You don't remember it?
I guess I slept through it.
Why do you hate Nicolas Cage so much?
I don't hate Nicolas Cage. I really don't.
I think you do.
And I love Pedro Pascal. I think
he's fantastic.
Great.
But
saw one of the trailers we saw last night was the new Gladiator trailer that he's in.
Really, yeah. Not so sure I'm cool with that.
Here's what I will tell you: out of all the trailers I saw, and I'm not.
Is it Ridley Scott also?
Yeah, it is Ridley.
Okay.
It is Ridley
All right.
Scott. Out of all the trailers I saw, the new Alien Romulus one.
Oh yeah,
is the trailer that, and I'm not really big into like Alien, but it just like it was put together really well.
It's supposed to be a horror movie, basically.
Yes, and it felt like
and
that.
it goes back to the original premise.
Yeah,
you know,
so it felt like that again. Not necessarily
less
my cup of tea,
sci-fi,
but it
more
seems
horror.
good.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be good.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get into Spider-Man Noir. It was just a 4-issue series originally. There have been more add-ons. I have the sequel, which I think is Face Without Eyes at home that I just haven't read, that we get to see 1930s versions of Doc Ock and other characters. I think the Sandman in those. We don't see them here. Sorry, spoiler alert there. He's not the original story, but the characters we do have are still very fun and very interesting. Huh?
Nothing.
Sometimes I miss Mike's jokes.
No,
I'll probably
it wasn't even
5
a
minutes
joke.
later.
You shouldn't have missed it. Yeah, you should have missed it. It's terrible.
Spider-Man Noir, though, I think 2009 is what we're talking about when the original one came out here. Yeah, the first printing was in 2009. 4 issues. Writers are David Hine and Fabrice Sapolsky. Art by Carmine D. Giandomenico.
Wow.
Letters by Artmonkeys Studio. Cover art by Patrick Zurcher. And the editor is Alejandro Arbona.
Wow,
so,
they made that easy on you.
Yeah. But still, I just want to make sure and give credit as we go
absolutely,
ahead
sure.
and break down into what I enjoyed. Like, I read this all in one night, all 4 issues.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it for the most part. I just thought it was fun. So we start off. That's the Daily Bugle. Kind of, we're back in 1933 is where we start off. I'm trying to remember if it gives us a date.
It looks like
New York City, January 1933 is where we start off.
What's the one with DiCaprio with the toast and,
Great Gatsby?
Yeah, it kind of looks like that.
Okay. So we have the Daily Bugle, and police show up, and they're asking, where's Jameson's office, as in J. Jonah Jameson. Mm-hmm. And the secretary tells them, like, well, he's right here. And they're like, well, we just got a call that he's been shot. Like, where is he at? They break down the door to see Spider-Man on the desk with a shot J. Jonah Jameson with pictures kind of all over his desk.
And he has a gun in his hand.
He does have a gun in his hand. So if you were cops and you busted in here, it would look like Spider-Man just killed J. Jonah Jameson.
And for people that are just listening to this instead of watching it, Spider-Man is completely in black.
Yes.
No web things on him.
We'll get an explanation of like his suit
right. I'm
and
just
why
saying
it looks like that.
That's what we're getting now.
It's very Spider-Man. Spider-Man Noir because it has those like noir detective story type feel to it. The grizzled, like the 30s type look and stuff. So it's a lot of like he's wearing like a black trench coat kind of almost look. He has a mask, but it has almost like goggles for the eyes kind of.
It's like a steampunk Spider-Man.
Exactly. If you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, just think about that one sans the hat. He doesn't have the hat.
Yeah, he doesn't have the hat.
But it's still like the duster
cool goggles,
and the black. Yeah, it's a really cool look.
Yeah.
And so Spider-Man tries to tell them, like, hey, it wasn't me. And they're like, drop the gun. And he ends up kind of webbing them a bit and jumps out the window as they shoot after him. And he is able to barely escape.
So he's got webs and a gun?
He does.
Huh. Okay.
What we then is we get a kind of flashback a bit. We move our story back a bit and we see this photographer. Do you know Ben Urich? He worked for the Daily Bugle. Do you remember the season 1 of Daredevil? Okay.
I didn't watch it.
Anyway, Ben Urich is a photographer for the Daily Bugle.
Okay.
He also helps Karen Page in season 1 of Daredevil. He's a character in there that I'm pretty sure, spoiler alerts, but I mean, it's been out for like what? 8,
I think it's fair game.
But season 1, I think Ben ends up dying in the series too.
Oh wait, I hadn't watched it.
So, but still, Ben Urich is a photographer for the Daily Bugle, and so he's kind of going around these like camps of like what do you call it? I remember like they built them. Of course, I'm blanking when I'm sitting here. Like they would build these just like makeshift kind of settlements for people. They're like
internment camps.
Yeah, in a way, but it's not. It's like there's nowhere.
They're not held there, though.
No, but it's like they. they squeeze so many people into these apartment buildings. It's overflowed, so now they make like makeshift housing that they stay in. That's kind of like homeless shelters. Like I remember.
Well, I think that's where like shotgun houses and things like that came from. You know,
I remember
because they're so small in size.
If we want to get historical, like with like the Black Dahlia murders and stuff that in like was that Cleveland?
I thought it was Los Angeles.
Huh?
I thought Black Dahlia was Los Angeles.
It is Los Angeles. What am I thinking of? There's another serial killer that was in Cleveland around
Drew
this time.
Carey?
No, I don't think so. No, he hosts The Price is Right. Anyway, they talked about like these, like there were a lot of these kind of like camps along the Ohio River that they would.
They're basically
build
poor
up
camps. Is what
like
they are.
like transient kind of
it's
like
where Great Depression. People had to have a place to go.
Because that's what we're at. We're in 33. We're right in the middle.
Yeah.
Like while Mike looks up on the TV, I'll go ahead and pull from my copy here to find what I'm looking for. But what we see is Ben Urich goes around and he is taking pictures of all the people here at these, he calls them shanty towns. There we go.
Shanty towns.
So, but Ben Urich is going around.
I saw them open for Great White. Shanty towns.
Did
great.
they? Yeah. The more you know. Shooting star.
3 bases, which I thought was too many.
And no drummer.
Yeah.
But so Ben Urich is taking pictures for the Daily Bugle to kind of show off how bad things are in New York, obviously.
Sure.
You know, Triple J Jonah Jameson wants pictures of how bad things are out there to sell paper.
Get me pictures.
Urich is writing stories and taking pictures of just the awful things out there. And we come across an old woman, May Parker, who was out there rallying the troops.
I know old May Parker.
She is. Well, she is definitely old and frail, like any May Parker you would think.
She doesn't marry Doc Ock.
Except the one in
right?
trouble. Okay. No, not this time. Or maybe they already have and they're annulled. I don't know. This isn't young May Parker either that's in trouble. This also isn't May Parker who teams up with Franklin Richards to try to defeat Galactus. That is a Marvel what if we'll get into at one point in time.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I'm pretty sure they're saved by Twinkies. So
saved by Twinkies?
Yeah, there's something to do with Twinkies.
I like
in that
the sound
one.
of that.
So, but May is like rallying the troops about how, you gotta, the system's corrupt, like you gotta fight for yourself, like you gotta rise up.
Sure.
And we see these enforcers, which are the same enforcers that are from the original Spider-Man stories that Steve Ditko and Stan Lee did, of Ox and Montana and Fancy Dan.
Oh, wow.
That's the 3 of them right there who you see.
Fancy Dan.
Fancy Dan knows karate. Ox is a big, brutish guy. And I'm pretty sure Montana is good with a bullwhip.
Just seems like a wrestling team.
He does. Well, it's a 60s name for sure when they made him. But like, I'm
saying all 3 of them. You bring all 3 of them out together, and they're like the Ghost Riders in the sky, or something.
They're called the Enforcers, so it like fits there too.
You go. Yeah.
But they helped out like they were like a group of like small time criminals that Spider-Man fought early on. But they also would eventually work for Green Goblin as like henchmen, and they work for the Goblin. Oh, air quotes.
The Goblin,
Norman Osborn for this too. So they're still kind of enforcers from him. Well, no, he's referred to as the Goblin. We'll get to him.
Wait, there was Green Goblin,
Hobgoblin,
and Hobgoblin. That's what's the other one. And that's Franco, right?
Franco was Green Goblin. So was there's been a lot. So was Defoe. We haven't had a Hobgoblin.
Defoe was Green Goblin.
Yeah, and so was Franco.
I thought Franco was Hobgoblin.
No, they're all Green Goblin. Oh. It's just they just had Harry Osborn.
I need a Hobgoblin.
They did on both. No, we haven't gotten.
I need a new lizard. I don't want Jamie Foxx he's Electro, isn't he? I don't want that anymore.
They did better without. He was in the newer one. They had the character.
In the newer one, it was different because they're bringing them all in from other timelines and stuff.
All right, so back to the story at hand. And so the enforcers are trying to stop May from speaking, and they're like, maybe you should kind of calm down a little bit. And Peter sticks up for his aunt, and he's just kind of pummeled by the enforcers there. And he's like tied up he's hit with the bullwhip. Like they just kind of deal with Peter. And about that time, Ben Urich takes a picture and tells them, "Say cheese, guys."
Uh-oh.
And they all kind of turn and look at him, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Like, what problems do you want, Urich?" Like, they already know him. And they're like, he's like, "Maybe you should leave the boy alone, like, unless you want everybody to see what you guys are up to."
Yeah. And that's the last thing a gangster wants is pictures.
Probably. Yeah, well, pictures in the paper.
Yeah.
And so the enforcers kind of tell Urich, like, "It's a good thing you're protected. Come on, let's get out of here." And as they leave, Fancy Dan tells the others, like, that old woman and the boy and Urich, they'll get there soon enough kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
photographer Ben Urich walks Peter Parker and his Aunt May home. And once he walks them home, he sits there and he asks Peter, like, hey, can you get out after midnight? Just asking him, like, do you need to be home? Like, can we go somewhere else?
Yeah.
And what he does is he takes him to a club called the Black Cat, which is ran by one Felicia Hardy, who is Black Cat in the Spider-Man comics.
All right.
That's her right there. But in this, she runs the nightclub kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I like, is that we get a lot of Spider-Man characters, but they're obviously in different roles in the 30s. It's very much like these Elseworld kind of Batman stories and things you get of where it is the characters but they're just kind of different roles.
Right.
And so, like, they come in and they sit down and they talk, and I can't read the font on there, so I'll just pull it for mine to kind of go over some of the things while they sit there and they talk there at the Black Cat. And Urich tells Peter, he's like, I like you, Peter, and I like your Aunt May. I don't want to see you getting hurt the way that you're going. Like, it seems like you're headed that. And Peter tells him, like, you think that she should keep her mouth shut, don't you? Like, you're just like everybody else. And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, I believe that there's good guys and bad guys and all that, because Peter tells her, like, she's believing in something that I believe, like, she's doing good.
Right.
And Urich tells him, like, I believe in all that, but, like, take a look around this room for an instant. He goes, look over there. And he kind of points over to people in the room there with him. And he's like, you see that guy over there? Like, that's Jimmy Snyder. Like, that's the mayor, kind of with the girls there. And that guy over there, that's the head of police. Like that, like he's going through and he's pointing to everybody in this club who all have their vices for something else.
Sure.
He's like, he's the head of police. He's the head of, like they're all here. Like they're all greased by the same palm.
They're all getting something out of it.
Exactly.
They're all dirty.
He's like, and we have, there's also this industrialist that's named, Adolph Crane. That's like he's the big money in the city. So he talks about, like, here's the mayor here, or maybe it's Adolphus. It is Adolphus. My pages go like right down the
it's
crease,
so much better when you say Adolphus.
For sure, especially in 33.
Yeah.
But so he points out, like, there's the mayor, there's the chief of police, there's like the most money here in town. Like, they're all just as crooked because they all work for him in a way. And about that time...
They all work for Adolphus?
No. Norman Osborn walks in.
Oh, okay.
As in the Goblin.
Yeah.
That's the guy there in his white coat.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is we met the enforcers earlier of Fancy Dan and Ox and Montana. Yeah. Those aren't the only guys in his crew.
I don't know that you can say Fancy Dan anymore.
No,
I don't know.
Daniel? We'll just call him Daniel.
Fancy Daniel, yeah.
So, Daniel,
Extravagant
Montana,
Daniel.
and Ox. We also see some more of his kind of right-hand men that you might be a little more familiar with.
Okay.
As we see the tall guy right there is Kraven the Hunter.
Oh, okay.
And the little Nosferatu-looking character, which I did enjoy this for him, is Vulture.
Oh, yeah. He looks like Vulture. He looks like he should be Vulture. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about Vulture was Michael Keaton, I think, in the Spider-Man movie. This is a different Vulture because this is a Vulture that we find out. So Norman Osborn comes in with his group then of Daniel, Ox, Montana, Kraven the Hunter. Yeah, I told me to.
I know.
Kraven the Hunter and Vulture. And he goes and he stops.
Does Vulture have a name?
Adrian Toomes.
Okay.
But, And
I
don't remember Kraven's the full name. Yeah, no, Adrian Toomes is brought up because we'll see how they do.
Kraven is that a bird or a monkey on his shoulder?
It's a monkey.
Okay.
Well, Kraven's like a master.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
I don't know why my voice cracked like that. He stops there. Oh, Fancy Daniel stops at the table and is like, "Oh, fancy seeing you here." To the two of them after they already had the run in, and Norman swings by and he's like, good evening, Urich." And Parker, like, is it like he's like, "I heard about your uncle," because here's the thing: we find out. Peter does tell him that his uncle was kind of like he was a part of the movement. Like he would talk with like Aunt May, and then somebody like killed him. Like they wanted to silence him.
He knew too much.
So they killed Aunt Ben.
Yeah,
and
Aunt
so
Ben.
Norman kind of tells him like, it's a shame what happened to your uncle.
Uncle Ben. You said Aunt Ben.
Aunt Ben. Well, I mean, sorry, Uncle Ben.
I mean, he can do whatever he wants.
That's true.
I'm just saying,
but it is Uncle Ben still here. And Norman tells him, it's a shame what happened to your uncle. Like, I heard about it. Like, torn apart take 4, torn apart by dogs.
Yeah.
What a shame.
What the hell? He got torn apart by dogs?
Yeah, and like he's just kind of smiling about it.
Yikes.
And about that time, Peter says, don't even say his name, and takes his glass and just throws it at what's in there into Norman Osborn's face.
Yeah.
And he starts patting his face. And when he does that, you see Adrian Toomes or Vulture like he's about to attack. And Norman just kind of stops him with his hand. And he's like, you guys have a good rest of your night. Like he just kind of calms him down. And as they walk away, are Felicia and the bouncers there, Felicia Hardy, Black Cap. And one of the bouncers of the club comes by and is like, you guys need to leave. And they throw the 2 of them out for having thrown the drink on Norman Osborn.
Well, I guess the other guys are a little more important.
Yep.
And he did instigate by throwing the drink on him.
That is very true.
So it's always the second guy who gets caught and thrown out.
Usually. Peter did kind of instigate it a bit. But rightfully so, because obviously Norman Osborn knows more than what he's leading, and it's a sore subject of somebody killed your uncle. I would think that maybe you might throw a drink.
I completely understand it. You know, if you get your uncle torn apart by dogs, you are allowed to throw one drink.
Yeah, that's true.
State law.
So he finds out that Uric and Peter are talking more as he's like walking him back home afterwards. Finds out that he doesn't have a job or anything, so he decides to set him up.
Peter doesn't have a job?
Peter doesn't.
Okay.
He decides to set him up at the Daily Bugle, taking pictures. He's like, you'll come with me. We'll go write these stories. Like, you'll be my photographer. That way, I can also keep an eye on you because you kind of essentially, you got a lot of piss and vinegar in you, kid, and you're going to get yourself killed.
I guess it was still okay to have that mustache at that point, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
J. Jonah Jameson kind of always has.
I get it. But I'm saying this time, you know.
Time too.
If it was
1940,
I'd be like, yeah, you need to shave that sucker.
Yeah, but he's always kind of. So that's kind of like the plan they come up with.
I like that. That's beautiful layout.
Yeah, Uric
It's
tells
got like
him
the photos
of like we'll go
overgoing
through,
the
and he wants
and
pictures of like how bad the city is.
Yeah,
he wants people to see that. Like I told that earlier. So he takes Peter with him, and that's the thing. Is like Peter just essentially carries his gear, but it's him being with Ben. Like they're taking these pictures, they're seeing these stories, and for Uric, he's like showing Peter like, here's everything else that's going on around New York City. Like it's not just like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of bad, but there's bad everywhere, kid. And so like
it's a cool layout though.
There's even
love
one.
that layered look.
No, I do love the way that this. I really enjoyed this story. This is one that I liked a lot from start to finish. So the 2 of them are sitting there after going out and taking pictures, and they're having pie. I can only assume because that's what you eat at diners for the most part.
Damn fine pie.
And Peter decides to tell him. He goes where Uric says that he told him about the night that Uncle Ben was killed. And he tells him that Uric said that it was old news to me how he died. He says, what I didn't know was that Peter was the one who found his uncle's mutilated body. So Peter tells the story as in like they killed him and then they just let the dogs kind of go after him. Like that's how disrespectful they were to him. And Peter found Uncle Ben afterwards. So it's like obviously a very big thing for Peter. What we find out is though, and this is where we get one of our first little twists in the story, is Uric tells him, he goes, I thought I had it bad, but I never went through half the pain and loss that he's been through, like as a kid. Like he's just listening to this story. And we see that Ben Uric, it would help if I go the right way, has some demons of his own while he's going through this story because it shows him back after they've met at the diner and Peter telling him the story about the night he found his uncle, of him like cooking up, I'm assuming heroin, like in a spoon and shooting it up. Like Uric has his own demons as well that he's dealing with because he tells him as he goes, he says, it wasn't dogs that tore Ben Parker to pieces. It wasn't dogs. Like he's reliving something that he knows. Yeah. And we see Vulture. He goes, all those years in the freak show, we're talking about Adrian Toomes. Because I didn't necessarily go into why Vulture looks like he does. Being treated like an animal, something happened to Adrian Toomes. Adrian Toomes, in this story, was a geek, Mike.
Oh, okay.
What a geek was back in the day, before it was given to nerdy guys like me, is a circus performer who would...
Sideshow.
Who would bite the heads and eat the heads off chickens. So, they have essentially turned...
You ever seen that movie?
I don't know.
Geeks? Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that's a good. It's creepy as hell.
Okay.
It's actual carnival sideshow people.
Oh no,
but it's acted out as a movie. And I'm not saying the acting is great or anything, but it is creepy as hell. And it's like it was made in the 30s, I think, 30s or 40s.
Some stuff from the 30s.
Yeah, it's just creepy looking stuff. Yeah.
But it says like, and he talks about how it wasn't dogs, like it was Adrian. Like something happened to him there in those sideshows of being treated like an animal, of being forced to do this day in and day. This is Vulture. So he's essentially, his mind has eroded into that of a beast. Like Vulture is just like if you can see his teeth, like he looks like Nosferatu. And his teeth are all like sharp and pointy and spiky.
So it looks like he tears stuff up. With 100 extra teeth.
He does. Yeah. And he tells him, he's like, somehow, he developed a taste for human meat. And how do I know this? How do I know that Ben Parker's living body was cannibalized? Because I was there. Oh. And we find out that Ben Urich was there the night that Uncle Ben was killed. So he knows for sure that it was the goblin who did it. We go into issue 2 now of our story.
Goodness.
And we're going back to Urich is kind of, developing some of the photographs.
He's in a dark room.
That him and Peter are taking of the different things they have. And while they're pointing it out, like Peter's noticing like, hey, like all these accidents and stuff that we've taken pictures of, like that fire, because he's asking, like, why would a landlord set the building on fire? And he tells them, well, they've lowered the rate so much to get as many people in there as possible. So everybody's, like, stacked up on top of one another. Yeah. You can't make any more money by squeezing more people in there.
So you got to get rid of it.
So you got to get rid of it. So what do? You torch it down. Sure. Well, somebody's left in there. Like, and that's the thing. Is like, there was somebody left in there that died in this fire. So it becomes a murder now. And it's not necessarily just
You got to remember at this time there was no like, we can trace accelerants or DNA.
So
or
they
any
would
of that
do
kind
that
of stuff.
and
burn it down.
And just for the insurance money.
Yeah.
Well, there was somebody left inside, and so it turns into a murder. And Peter points out when they're developing the photos, hey, look, here's Daniel, because we can't call him Fancy Dan anymore. But he's like, the enforcers are in these pictures. Like the goblin has something to do with this. Yeah. Like we find them on all these pictures. Like you should do something about it. And that's where he tells him, he's like, kid, like, you can't do anything about it, essentially. He's like, it's all, like, he has his hands in everything. It's kind of like the story he tells him. Like, what are we going to do? Like, even if we put all this information out there, like, he'll just stop it from coming out. Is essentially kind of like the story he tells him when doing all this. And so Peter is upset by everything that's going on. But what he does is, I'm trying to find the part where I leave. So Peter leaves upset by all this. And he goes, and he tells him, he's like, hey, go take these pictures to the Daily Bugle for us to make the late edition. Let's see if we can still make it. So Peter leaves, and he comes back, and he tells him, like, Ben, we did make the late edition. Ben? And Ben is out. He got high again, and he's in his chair just conked out.
Passed out.
Peter kind of sees the needle there, and Peter's upset by this. But he gets a phone call while he's there. And Peter answers his phone. And the phone just says, Spider, that you? It's the Fly. I got a hot one for you. And he's like, Peter doesn't know what's going on. He's like, yeah, go ahead. And he's like, okay. And he tells him that this action's going off. Like the Goblin's goons are picking up a shipment of antiques. Here's the place that it's supposed to be to the Metropolitan Museum. Like, it's essentially.
So the guy thinks he's calling Ben.
He's calling Ben. Okay. This is Ben's source, I'm assuming, for all of these stories that he has. Ben is referred to as the Spider.
Right.
His source is the Fly, kind of. And the Fly tells him, all right, I got to go. He tells him, like, meet me down at Pier 571. And he goes, the Spider? What in the world are you up to, Ben? And he hangs up and he leaves the note, but he heads down there to see him anyway. And what he does is he kind of hides to see what they're doing. And the enforcers are unloading these weird, like this spider totem and all these weird antiques from like Africa and stuff. And Craven tells him to be careful, and he ends up dropping like one of the boxes, and this totem falls out, and all these spiders end up crawling out of it and crawling all over Fancy Dan, and Fancy Dan is eaten alive by these spiders.
Dan is fancy no more.
Dan is fancy no more. And so Peter also, while he's watching them, like they load it up, because like, what should we do? And they're like, don't worry. I'm sorry, I don't think he kills them. He hoses them off.
Yeah,
they're about to eat them up. but he hoses him off. Well, he said he's dead. Those spiders killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter's like, don't scream, don't scream. And about that time, Peter himself is bit by one of the spiders that got away.
There we go.
This is a full-page one that it's making a full thing for some
Origin
reason.
achieved.
So what happens is while he is bitten by this, it won't make it full screen, this spider, he essentially thinks that he has met this spider god. Like it causes him to hallucinate, and it tells him like, why do you tremble, little man? My bite brings death only to those with evil intent. I will bestow on you a greater torment, the curse of power. So it's like these fancy spiders that apparently are fancy, like some kind of mythical, they're from another country, ancient spider god spiders that bite Spider-Man or Peter and give him powder. Yeah. Powder. Give him power. I don't know if they give him powder. They might give him powdered power. When we find out, he has all of his spider powers now. Uh-oh. So he got bit by a spider. That's how he has his spider powers. He tells and heads back to Norman's place to confront him about all of this. And we see that Ben Urich has shown up already at Norman Osborn's. And Osborn asks him, he's like, what do you want, Urich? Like, he's like, I pay you to stay out of my hair, not to come and get in it. Like,
sure.
What are you doing here? And he essentially tells him, like, hey, we have this picture of Fancy Dan at that, like building burned down. He's like, it's about time that you're doing these things. And like, I have proof. Mm-hmm. And Norman's like, yeah, what do you want? I'll go ahead and buy that off of you. Like, that's fine. You just need another fix. That's all you had to say. Like, he's just playing him kind of for a junkie in a way to buy the pictures from him. And he's like, go ahead, pay the man. Like, they're treating him just kind of like a... And about that time, Peter busts through the window to attack all of them. And he lands on the Goblin's desk. And he tells him, I'm here to give you a message, Goblin. It all stops. The extortion, the drugs, the prostitution, the protection rackets, all of it. And he's sitting there.
Not the protection rackets.
Not the protection rackets. And he asks him, he's like, or what? Are you going to arrest me? The only way you stop me is to kill me. And he kind of holds him like face to face looking at him. And he asks him, he's like, so are you ready to do that? And as he's there, like staring at Osborn, Ben Urich is kind of like backing out of the room, scared. And Peter or Spider-Man turns and sees him and is like, Urich? And so he chases after him because he's like, why are you here with the Goblin?
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
And he does, and he chases after him and he falls down. And he tells him, he's like, how could you? Like, how could you be doing this? You're taking his filthy money. Like, tell him, like, why? I had respect for you.
Sure, right.
Like, how could you do that? You're just a drunk and a junkie, and you're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of going after him. He's like, he bought you like a dog. And as soon as he says that, like, Ben's looking up at him. He's like, Peter? Like, he knows.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Peter doing this. And about that time, there's he tells him, Peter, wait, let me finish. And he's like, stay away from me, Urich. And he just kind of goes away to leave Ben as everybody else shoots after Peter as they run away. So it's obviously hit Ben in a way of like, man, something like I have let Peter down.
I love how that guy in New York just wears a cowboy hat all the time.
Oh, yeah, snow. Montana? Well, I mean, he's from Montana. Bozeman, probably. But Ben is back at home.
Bozeman, am I right?
And what Peter has said has obviously hit him, right?
Yeah.
He's like, man, he's kind of right. Like, I fought to do all this. So he calls up J. Jonah Jameson, and he tells him, he's like, all right, Jonah, you've wanted the story that's going to sell you paper, that's going to show everything. Let's do the story that's going to go ahead and take out the Goblin. Like, I have all the pictures. I have all the information. Let's go ahead and do it.
So he's ready to go.
He's ready to go ahead and print the story.
Let's get it.
Yep. And Jonah tells him, he's like, all right.
Come on,
I'll come pick it up from you. He's like, don't worry about coming here. We don't want, like, I'll come get it from you.
Sure.
And so we get the speech bubble because Ben Urich has been our narrator this whole time. And he's like, tonight I'm doing the right thing. Tonight I'm burying the spider. Like, I'm finally going to do what's right. And there's a knock on its door, and he's like, I know who I am. And he opens the door, and it says, I'm Ben Urich. And we get a blam from a door. Like, he's opened the door, and it's somebody there with a gun that is shot Ben.
We literally see the muzzle and the whole thing.
Yep.
And just going
he tells him,
right
like, I'm taking my
POV.
life back. I'm trying to zoom out. There we go.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm taking my life back. And we see that Peter is back at home, and he's putting together his Uncle Ben's old war uniform from World War I.
Oh, okay.
And that's what he takes, and he makes it into a costume.
That suit looks that way.
Exactly.
Got it.
And that's what he uses to
that's
make
smart.
into a spider costume.
That's a smart way to handle that, like within the story.
It is.
Yeah.
And then also, that's where the revolver comes from, too.
I got you.
It's Uncle Ben's as well.
Yeah.
He's like, I need it just in case. He does have his organic webs that we'll find out, but
they are organic.
They are organic.
Okay. Right.
And he goes back to see then Ben. So he's making his costume, and what we see is we go back to Urich's apartment, and Jonah's standing there on the telephone, J. Jonah Jameson, and he goes, "It's done. The spider's dead." So J. Jonah Jameson also works for the Goblin, and Ben Urich is now dead, as we see Spider-Man in his new outfit on top of a snowy building that says, "Say your prayers, Goblin. Here comes the Spider-Man."
Wow.
And that is our halfway point in our story.
That was cool.
And the perfect place for us to take a break before we wrap up Spider-Man Noir right here on Bros, Foes, and Heroes. Welcome back into Bros, Foes, and Heroes as we continue covering Spider-Man Noir, the last 2 issues of our story here to close it out.
Noir.
So we see Spider-Man on top of a snowy New York City skyline as he's jumping through to go see.
He cuts an impressive
Ben
figure.
Urich.
You know?
He is.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like, I like the costume.
Cool.
It is cool. It's like a makeshift, but it's like a cool makeshift costume.
Honestly, it's if Batman were Spider-Man. That's kind of what he would look like.
In a way, just without those giant long ears. Like
those ears can suck.
he had on.
Rock and Roll Must Never Die.
Batman Fortunate Son.
Yeah.
So,
oof.
While we're here also, he decides to go and pay Ben a visit still, and that's where he's the one who discovers Ben is dead. And that's why he takes his mask off. He's like, no, not again, because, well, he had also lost Uncle Ben. Technically, that's 2 Bens. He lost Ben Urich and Ben Parker.
Gang.
If you're Ben, you should never be friends with Spider-Man. If
that's
your name
true.
is Ben.
That's absolutely true. Ben Shapiro was his friend, too.
Well, is that?
I don't know. I just made it up. It's the only other Ben I could think of. Ben Affleck was his buddy.
Ben and Jerry. Jerry's fine.
Jerry's great. Ben, not so much.
Well, I can't make that. There's a never mind. So, go see Deadpool.
He's Cherry Garcia his way right out of here.
Cherry Garcia his way. So he's obviously upset about this, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And the cops are there taking pictures of it. And while they're taking pictures, they're like, all right, so the kid Parker, like, he finds the body, and we'll just say that, like, he did it. And they're like, no. He's friends.
It's like, let's wrap this thing up. I got stuff to do.
He's like, he found him dead. And, like, how are we going to go with this? Like, can we pin it on the kid? And that's like, nah, like, he called it in. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, looks like we'll just leave it as unsolved.
Yeah, because the people that call it in, they never do it.
No, but
sure.
Like, Peter can hear them just talking about it, and he's just like, oh.
Yeah.
So, we then see, though, that Norman, we flash back because they're like, oh, all right, like, you know, Peter, like, you can go ahead and go. Just don't leave, don't leave town if you have any questions. Norman is very upset, and he's like, this? You come to me with this?
He is very upset.
And we see that Jonah is there in his office, and he's like, he goes, they didn't call the spider for nothing. And he's like, what do you mean? Where are the files on him? Like, I paid you to do all this. Like, you know, he's like, the Goblin. Oh, Norman Osborn is like, find this information. Like, he has it on me. It's somewhere.
Yeah.
Do your job, find it.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're holding out on me, and he like kind of pulls a gun on me. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm telling you.
But this is the problem with being friends with gangsters, you know.
Exactly.
Or accepting favors from gangsters.
And so he tells Jonah, he's like, well, then who has it? Find it. Like, go ahead. Who would Urich trust with all this? Go and find that information. So while they're out and about, Peter Parker's kind of walking down the streets, and the bodyguard from the Black Cat from earlier stops him and goes, the lady's been wanting me to find you. She wants to talk to you, as in Felicia.
Sure.
So they go back to the Black Cat, and Peter's taken upstairs, and we see Ox sitting at the bar there, as he's sent upstairs to
Having
go
a very
see Felicia.
frothy beer.
Yeah. And so while Peter goes and talks to Felicia, she says, Peter, like, I know what you thought of Ben, and he called me last night and told me that the old me you knew was about to, like, essentially, like, the old me is gone. Like,
Right.
You know, I'm going to do something finally, is what she says that he called and told her. So
at least one other person knew about him trying to go straight.
Yes, and it was Felicia,
Yeah.
because at one point in time, I kind of went over it a bit, but Ben makes the reference that I think Felicia's the only girl he kind of ever loved. Like, he always had a thing for her.
Gotcha.
But she tells him, like, he
what's
called
not
me
to
last
love
night.
about a girl who's in sunglasses all the time?
Well, just right now. But says that told me you knew about the drugs and that he was taking money from the goblin. Ben was no saint. I know that better than most, but he was a better man than you think, is what he tells him.
Okay.
And
prove it.
Yeah, and she's like, I know. Or Peter says, like, I know. And she cuts him off. And Felicia says, what you don't know is that he was going to risk everything to expose the goblin and the rest of this to come. Like, that's why he died.
Yeah.
It was because of you, Peter. She's telling, like, he finally decided to do something because of, like, what you said to him.
Mm-hmm.
And she opens her safe, and she essentially gives him everything that he had. He was like, he came, he gave it to me, and he told me to give it to you, that you would know what to do with all this.
Cool.
So he takes the papers, and he leaves, and he goes back home there with Aunt May, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with everything. And May comes in.
Ooh, May looks angry.
Yeah. And she goes, do you want to talk? I know that Mr. Urich meant a lot to you. And Peter tells him, like, no, like, Urich, he was just a coward. Like, he wasn't. And Peter does, Aunt May does look angry at that. She goes,
she's very angry.
I only met him once, but I'm pretty good judge of character. And she's like, he goes, Aunt May, you don't know. And Aunt May stops him and goes, I don't know what, I don't know what he did or didn't do, but he did right by you, so you do right by him.
Right. So
she goes, like, you hear me? And Peter just kind of like,
can I ask you one thing?
Go ahead.
Who's Urich?
Ben Urich's the photographer.
Okay. Do you think that's a veiled, like, Hamlet reference?
No,
like,
Ben Urich has been a...
Right, I understand that. I'm saying as far as, like, the creation of his name and his character.
Oh, I have no clue.
Do you think that came from that?
Potentially. I
like
can look it up
Alas
later.
Poor Urich, you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I don't know. It might have been Alas, but, I mean, he's been around for a long time.
Okay. I just didn't know.
There could... Here's the thing. I don't know who created him, but yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be. I don't want to say no. But
right.
I'm not going to lie and tell you that I know for
But
sure.
they've never referenced that, to your knowledge.
Not that I know. But there are a lot smarter people out there about this than me. We get Ben Urich's funeral, and while we're there, Jonah walks up to him. When you see the red around Peter's, that's kind of his spider sense.
Gotcha.
So he feels that, like, there's something off kind of about Jonah.
Yeah, he looks like Hitler.
Yeah,
That's what's
Triple J
wrong
comes
with
and talks
Jonah.
to him, and he's like, hey, I know that, like, you and Urich were close here lately. Like, had y'all been working on anything together? Like, is there anything that he told you about he was working on? He's fishing for the papers or for the information.
Sure.
Peter tells him, like, no. It's like, you didn't tell me anything. There's nothing really that I know. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, then, that's fine.
Got to go conquer Poland.
Yeah, all right. Well, let me know. Take care. And he follows. Spider-Man kind of just sits there and tracks and follows to see, and he takes the information that he's gotten from Urich, and he slowly works on taking out little different spots in the Goblin's kind of
like
operation.
His empire. Yeah.
Yeah, like things here, there, and he leaves a calling card of the spider every time he does it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's like, see, like the little business card in the webbing. Yeah,
that's the equivalent of showing your face with your Spider-Mobile.
Yeah, exactly. It's the presenting. Even though I did have somebody in the comments that I do have to say.
Yeah, we didn't think about it that way.
I know I didn't. When they brought it up of like he used to do it before he had it on the car.
Yeah.
And he goes, think of the commenter. I'm sorry, I don't have your name right offhand. Brought it up. Think of it as like Stone Cold Steve Austin's music when the glass breaks before of like, oh, you're about to get your ass kicked. And I was like, okay, I can appreciate that.
See, now that makes
like I never thought about it like that.
That makes it way cooler.
It does. Anyway, we get a Daily Bugle cover of like, who is this Spider-Man? And it's like 8 legs. Like, they draw him because you're going off of what everybody's told you about him at this point. And the Goblin is pissed. He's like, I'm tired of this. Like, enough of this Spider-Man. And all the other, like, big-time crime bosses are there, and they kind of tell the Goblin, like, hey.
Who's the dude in the big fur coat?
He's a no-name, like bigger mafioso type, I guess. But he's like, hey, we come to you for protection. You're not protecting us. I mean, like, maybe there's something else there we got to do, but you should fix this. Like, that's what they're sitting there like, the Spider-Man is a threat, and he's a problem, and you're doing nothing about it.
Right.
So that's when he's like, we need to figure out who the Spider is. Like, I need to kill him. He's like, it has to be the kid, that Parker kid or Felicia. Like, knowing all this. And that's about the time that Ox says, Felicia Hardy? He's like, I saw the kid. Like, I saw Parker, the black cat, going up to talk to her in her private room a couple days ago. And he's like, you saw when? When did you see it? And he goes, I think maybe like the day after Yurik was killed, man. Like, and he's like, thank you, Ox. Thank you for sharing that with us. Like, now kind of, And he's like, I want Parker. I want to clean house. All right, he goes, and it's time to clean house. Like, tell him, like, it's time to get rid of everything. So Peter's flipping through all of his information, trying to figure out, like, what he needs to do.
Well, he's also sitting on the edge of the building like Spider-Man would in normal comics.
He does.
Now.
He's like perched,
he's like
sitting there
perched,
looking.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, James. Oh, he's reading the paper about who Spider-Man is.
Right.
And it's already, we get the first of, like, painting Spider-Man to be this awful, like, person, which is a very
Same
Spider-Man
thing.
trope.
Sure. He killed Magneto.
So he's like, all right, Jameson, you
Not
want
Magneto.
grit and integrity?
Who was the guy he killed in
what?
the movie? They thought he killed Dome Boy. What's his name with the dome on his head? Gyllenhaal.
Oh, Mysterio.
Mysterio. I kept thinking Magneto. I couldn't think Mysterio for some reason.
What?
Yeah. Well, you were saying, he killed this, killed that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was saying he killed
and so Spider-Man tells him, like, Jonah always wanted grit and integrity for his paper. We'll give him grit and integrity.
There you go.
And that's when he shows up at the Daily Bugle office with his gun, and he's like, Jameson. And Jameson
he
just
don't
says,
look too hot.
You come to kill me? It must be an open season. And that's where he notices that Jameson's already been shot before he's there. And he goes, did the Goblin do this? Like, what did you have on him, Jameson? And he goes, he's the master of disguise. You won't believe and he just passes out. And that's where the cops come out and go, nobody move. And Peter's like, it's a setup.
Yeah.
And he jumps out, and that's where he escapes to get out of her. We're taken back to where we started our story.
He crashes through the window. They're shooting at him.
Yeah, and he ends up getting shot. Like, he notices, like, because he's bleeding out of his arm.
Right.
So he goes to clean himself up, and he starts digging through Ben's, like, paperwork a little bit more. And that's where he's like, there has to be something here in Yurik's file.
That's cool, because it shows the pictures that he finds in there.
Of the Goblin and of Kraven the Hunter.
More like the characters, right? Because the Vulture, he looks like the Vulture in this.
Yes.
Kraven is standing there with a tiger.
Yeah.
So,
so he looks very much like Kraven.
We're getting there.
And so it's sitting there. He's like, they're all here. I recognize all the Goblin's men except, and he notices, and he's like, that's it. And about that time, he goes to the city morgue. And as he's there in the city morgue,
I don't think those guys can hurt you anymore.
And he's looking at, like, the toe tags, and he finds what he's looking for. And it's J. Jonah Jameson. And he pushes his face
in the morgue already.
In the morgue, because he's dead, yeah. Well, he got shot.
Well, I'm saying it was quick.
It was. And he pushes his hands onto his face.
Uh-huh.
And he notices that it keeps the impression.
Oh, it's not really
like,
him.
Whoever performs the autopsy on this course is in for a big surprise.
Can I make a guess? Is it Clayface?
No, Clayface is Batman.
Damn it.
That's DC.
God, that would have been so good.
But it
would have been so good.
No, it is
Sandman.
It is the similar. It's another character like that's been around for a bit.
Let's go. Come on. I'm excited.
It's also Kraven's half brother.
Oh.
Dimitri. I'm not gonna. It's the Chameleon.
Oh,
I don't know if you know of the Spider-Man the Chameleon. He's a master of disguise. He's been an early villain since like issue 16, maybe before that. Like, he's been around for a long time.
That makes sense.
It used to be he had the technology to make himself look like anybody. For this one, they make it where he's able to actually, because he's part of the sideshow with everybody else, he's able to actually shape to look like other people.
That's a decent
write-up.
write-up.
He is a master of disguise still.
That's a decent write-up of that kind of stuff. Make them all sideshow people or circus people
so, like,
or whatever.
You see like the actual Chameleon there, and how he's able to change himself into whoever. He's like, this must be the Chameleon's greatest performance.
So the Chameleon's actually dead now.
The Chameleon's dead.
Okay.
And that's where he's like, so
JJJ is somewhere else.
Where's J. Jonah Jameson? And then we flash
Triple
to
J.
Kraven has Jonah locked up. has Triple J locked up next to a Tigers, and they're telling him like, they're getting hungry.
He's poking at him with a stick.
And he's there with the Goblin. And then we find out
insult to injury.
that
Injury
it's
to
not
insult.
just Triple J there. They are able to get Felicia Hardy as well.
Oh.
And he's like, now we're just waiting for our one last guest to be summoned. And we see a knock. Peter? And as Aunt May opens the door to go see him.
Poor Aunt May.
And about that time, we get a, Peter, are you here? And Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, is right over Aunt May about to pounce. And that is where we get into our very last issue of Spider-Man Noir here. And I like the cover of the fourth one.
That's
it's
really
like
cool.
It's like a I don't want to say like just broken and beaten Spider-Man with, Norman Osborn or the Goblin standing there behind him.
With
It's
a
a really
gun.
cool shot. But so the Vulture was waiting for Aunt May there in Peter's room as she entered, and he jumps down, taking her by surprise. And
As vultures do.
As vultures do. Well, this one we know is very much like a cannibalistic vulture.
Yeah.
Again, I keep saying Nosferatu because that's what it really reminds me of.
Well, what do they call it? Carrion or carry-on or something like that?
That's luggage, Mike.
No. They're the kind of bird, right? The ones that eat flesh.
Oh, there's like cannibal birds?
Yeah, but I think they're called like carrion or Carrion or something like that.
I don't.
Because they're a I started to say a sect. They're a group of birds or a family of birds that are like vultures and whatever else is like a vulture. Things
Condor
like that.
Are condors like vultures?
I don't know. Maybe
I can tell you.
I know eagles eat meat. I know that condors eat meat. I know that vultures
Black
eat
Condor
meat.
taught himself how to fly just by watching condors.
Black Condor's an idiot.
I thought about, we had our 3-year kind of anniversary come up.
Yeah.
I thought about, because there's 3 iterations of Black Condor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought about, because the very first episode we did was, I don't know why I should have done this. Like every year we would do the next one, but we would run out by now. But I thought about doing like the next iteration of Black Condor.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that great.
Well, I'm sure it's not, but that's kind of the point of the show.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. Like I say, not that great. Like some of the stuff just isn't. I read a decent amount of things, and there's a lot of stuff that's either like not fantastical enough or like just crazy enough, or
Well, it's also really hard to reboot one of those golden age.
well, I'm
kinda,
just like some of it. It's just you read and you're like, yeah, this reads like an '80s comic. This reads like a '90s comic.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like it fit in with like everything else going on at the time, kind of.
If you gave me the Vulture and said, okay, now bring him up to speed, this is basically what would come out of it, I would think.
But this is in the 30s. Like I get how they're going because they're going with like the sideshow aspect.
I think
of
even
this.
now he'd make a great villain like that.
See, I didn't mind like Michael Keaton's Vulture
No.
or like Old Man. You can do Vulture in a decent way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so as it looks like he's about to dispose of Aunt May.
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you one more time. Vulture would be great in the Pattinson Batman movies because you could make him dark.
That's again where
and cannibalistic
This is the second
and all
time
that
we've
stuff.
done this. That's DC. This is Marvel again. We're in Spider-Man.
Oh shit! Sorry.
So it's Clayface first. You really want
I'm very
Spider-Man people to be in Batman?
I do. I want him to cross over.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Dang it!
I know that there's a. I think there is a Batman Spider-Man crossover actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was in the 90s.
I read a thing the other
I'm
day.
gonna have to double check now.
I read a thing the other day where Kevin
Feige.
Foggy said that he's not opposed to a crossover movie.
I saw that too, but I don't see anything. Have I told you one of my? I'm sure I have, but let's
be
go
cool,
ahead
though.
and let's stop this at a complete halt. And I tell one of my favorite stories when it comes to things like that. Well, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
When it comes to things involving crossovers or rights to characters and stuff like that. There was one point in time where DC was, I think it was in the 80s, and DC was doing so well in licensing stuff, but was not doing good in comic book sales. And Marvel was doing really well in comic book sales. I can't remember. I think this is from the Reed Tucker book Slugfest, which we got to interview him a couple months back. And he was fantastic. Cool. But I think that's where I got this story from. And so the heads of DC call over, and I think Jim Shooter is the editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time. And they essentially tell him, like, hey, we'll let you publish, like, our comics. Like, you write Superman stories, you write and we'll just take care of licensing and all that. And so Shooter just kind of like, wow, you know, like that's a big deal for Marvel to essentially
Sure
get the
it is.
DC character, you know, goes and tells whoever the heads above him at the time are, and if I'm getting some of this wrong still, you know, about the deal, and he's properly told, well, why would we want that? If they can't sell their stories, why would we be able to? So he's like, no, we're not going to do that. And so they're just like, didn't get any further than that. Like sometimes, I don't know, I find like the stories like that super interesting. Like the things that, because there's a big Marvel versus DC crossover that they did in the 90s. Like things take forever to finally come around. And then it seems like there's usually always problems or something that happens that they don't want to work together for a while again. You know, it always seems like nobody can get, you know, fully. Everybody wants to be able to have like the final say to make sure I feel like their properties are the one that are taken care of the most. That I think it's something like that's probably never going to happen. I realize my story had nothing to do with that now when I get there, but still interesting story.
Well, I personally think that we live in a time where it would not shock me if Disney bought DC.
But that's Warner Brothers.
I don't
see that happening.
I get it.
Unless
did you think that MGM would ever not be MGM and be sold to Amazon? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean these are big iconic
well, we
companies.
say that now. Like I don't know.
And then HBO's in trouble. Like they're not making any money.
Well, they're under Warner Brothers now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Warner Brothers bit off too much. And they have so many properties at this point that I could see them unloading some of this stuff.
I can't see them unload. No. Like,
let's say the James Gunn stuff doesn't go well.
Well, there's a chance that no matter what happens, like if he comes out and you love the movies or you absolutely hate him, there's a chance still that Warner Brothers will not go through fully with whatever their plan is.
Oh, absolutely.
They have a reputation of doing that. And that's not even saying, like, I know that the Snyder fans out there are like, oh, like the DCU made so much money and they just didn't follow through with the plan. That's fine. I didn't necessarily care for it as much. I thought it was a little bit too dark. That's me.
Snyder sucks.
It's been long documented how Mike feels about Zack Snyder.
I don't like Zack Snyder.
But I just feel like Warner Brothers doesn't give things, at least like their plans that they have.
They don't give it the room to breathe.
Like I read this week because Comic-Con was going on.
Yeah. That
Matt Reeves said like, yeah, we have that Arkham Asylum series or that Gotham PD series that we wanted to do that we thought was really cool.
They got killed.
I'm paraphrasing. And then Warner Brothers was like, yeah, but we want to focus on more marquee characters. So he was like, oh, okay, so we'll find some other way to go back to what you want to do there. Like, I think my brother and I talked about this. Man, we are really getting off track now.
That's all right.
Good. It just seems that sometimes studios like to find things that were popular once before, try to capitalize off them as much as they can. I don't know where I'm going. I feel
that's
like I'm
why
just going down rabbit holes.
That's honestly why James Gunn excites me, because he brings in those minor characters and makes them cool.
It does, but
Polka Dot Man,
I guess my
really?
point.
Polka Dot Man, come on.
Yeah, well, that's the Suicide Squad in general. That's the way it needed to be instead of being like
absolutely.
dark and broody.
The Weasel.
Well, that's the thing about the Marvel, but that's the thing about the Marvel universe that worked, at least in the first part, is it's not super
but that's
dark.
DC,
it can
right?
have moments. Yeah, no, Suicide Squad was DC.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but they were at least a little bit more like they were able to play it up a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going. Oh, I just don't see, like, DC has always been, I can't see the two of them together. That will be a day that if I don't know. I don't think it could.
I think you're coming to a place where there's going to be 3 companies in the world. So that would not surprise me at all.
So we went from
I think Walmart will own them all at some point,
just to being
or Amazon. Oh yeah, come on, think about how many monopolies there are now.
I don't know where we got off track here. We're supposed to be talking about Spider-Man.
Do you know what's cool?
Noir.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, let's go back. Let's get into Spider-Man Noir after our little weird rants here. So
I blame it all on Vulture. That's
Vulture has attacked Aunt May. If you don't remember where we were after 10 minutes of mindless rambling, and Spider-Man has shown up now to just in the nick of time to essentially call off.
So that's him in the door.
That's him in the doorway right there.
So it's just a shadow of the dude you see.
Well, you can kind of make out.
Right, but I'm saying that's the noir part of it. You know, it's just his shadowy figure kind of showing up.
And
I like those eyes.
Yeah,
they kind of glow a little bit.
Goggles
yeah,
there.
Cool.
Here's the thing: I got to pull up my book because, again, I tell you, it's hard to read off the screen that you're there. Right. And so while he's sitting there looking in, Adrian Toomes or Vulture tells him, like, you know, hey, are Spider-Man, how fast do you move, Spider? Is it fast enough to stop me from snapping her neck? Is what he's like talking about Aunt May.
Why does everybody want to kill Aunt May?
And Spider-Man, that's just one of the tropes. She's old and people want to or marry her.
And then kill her.
Spider-Man says no, probably not. And about that time, he pulls up the gun to point it at the Vulture. And Aunt May is kind of pleading for him not to shoot, but he doesn't listen. And Spider-Man goes ahead and just shoots the Vulture and sits there and kills him. And Aunt May, oddly enough, is very much like, you killed him. Like, you shot an unarmed man. And he's just kind of like taken aback. And he's like, but he was going to kill you. And Aunt May's like, yeah, but who do you think you are? Like, they say that, you know, you can shoot webs. Like, why didn't you do that? Why did you, why didn't you, like, right after she got saved? Yeah. But it says, like, the goblin sent the piece to trash here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading from she goes, they say you can shoot webs. Why didn't you use that? And he goes, he was going to. And she goes, yeah, to kill me. You said that. You want me to thank you? Is that what you want? Like, she's giving him a hard time for going and killing.
What an ungrateful turd.
No, I get her point is like,
no.
She was
going to get killed by this ravenous, cannibalistic vulture man.
But she's saying he didn't have to use force to do it.
Come on. It's the 30s. Saying. Everybody was killing everybody.
Well, that doesn't make it good. And Peter does apologize to her.
Okay.
He does tell her, I'm sorry.
Sorry I saved your life.
Thing he says as he kind of walks
ingrate.
off. And Peter now goes
That's a thing in comics, though. Like, these heroes swoop in and they save people, and then people are like, why'd you do that? Well, we're trying to save you, idiot.
But it's the balance of, we're not going to get on a whole another rant here. We're talking about Spider-Man Noir.
Go ahead.
Oh,
You're
man.
good.
We'll
talk about this
another time. This is the
problem
problem, trying to break this up throughout the day.
This is another time. Gotcha.
Yeah. What we find out, okay, I don't remember where we were. So Spider-Man is out looking for everybody else, and we get a flashback to, or not a flashback, but a flash to, where the Goblin is with Felicia Hardy and with J. Jonah Jameson, where he has them all with Craven and the rest of his gang. Sans Daniel. Remember, no more Fancy Dan.
Fancy Daniel.
And so, like, Felicia is kind of confused at seeing Jonah there. I love how I've been calling J. Jonah Jameson Jonah this whole time. But confused to see...
His father was J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
He's Jonah.
Confused to see J. Jonah Jameson there. And we find out why is because that she was there to get the paperwork from Ben right before Jonah showed up to shoot him. And so she's like, I knew you were the one who killed Ben, so I went back to the newspaper to take care of you. But they had already switched Jonah out with... See, they didn't expect Chameleon to get shot.
Yeah.
They just were having Chameleon fill the place of J. Jonah Jameson while they had the real one taken away. She was trying to avenge Ben's death. She shot Chameleon instead.
Why didn't he just tell Aunt May about the fact that the Vulture ate that guy? I mean, wouldn't that change her?
Uncle Ben?
Wouldn't that change her?
Oh, you think if Peter was like, hey...
Yeah, but he's
Aunt
cannibalistic, May, Aunt May.
He ate Uncle Ben. Is it okay that I killed him now?
Yeah.
You think that would have been better?
That's what I'm saying. I think it would have been better. Yeah.
I don't know.
He's already taken a life and he's eaten it.
She was very upset about him killing Vulture. Like, I don't think that, like... He was like, but Aunt May, he killed Aunt Ben and your Uncle Ben. I think I called him Aunt Ben again.
Aunt Ben.
And your Uncle Ben would have been upset that you did that too. I mean, with great power comes great responsibility.
But again, Aunt May, he doesn't have the chance to be upset because he ate him.
Still, I mean, you got to pick your battles.
Yeah, okay. If I see a cannibal, I'm going to go on record. If I see a cannibal, I'm going to shoot him.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, just don't do it around Aunt May. Or
no cannibals.
Yeah. So
that's a hard line I'm drawing. No cannibals.
So she essentially tells the group, like, as she's telling them the story, like, so I thought that Jameson killed Uric, so I killed Jameson.
Yeah.
To which Craven realizes, you killed my brother? Like his half-brother. Because remember, he and Chameleon are brothers.
Wait, who's half-brothers?
Craven the Hunter.
Oh, okay. Did I know that?
I said it before. You just might not
okay.
remember.
I didn't know that then.
And so Norman or the Goblin grabs Felicia Hardy, like as he's like shaking her about this, and she's like, "Leave your hands off me!" And she like, or take your hands off me. She like smacks him.
Yeah, sure.
And it scratches his skin, and we see his cheek kind of peel away a bit.
Oh.
And so he sits there and he's like,
"Are we getting a green boy?
I was going to make this quick and painless, huh?
Are we getting a green boy?
I was going to make this quick and painless. You always have to do something to make me mad, and you know how I get when I get mad." And so he's going to feed her to the
like me when
case
I'm
of
angry.
spiders. That's true.
Oh, sorry.
The
that's
case
Hulk.
of spiders,
That's
the
Marvel.
same spiders that bit Peter earlier. And about that time,
Oh, wow.
Peter busts in, and he's able to. Oh, we get too far ahead. Oh,
There's a
man,
lot of
we got really
panels.
far ahead. I hate how it zooms in here. So
Yeah,
Peter
it
kind of
stinks.
busts in.
Oh, that's a beautiful
to save the
page,
day.
though.
Oh, it's great art here, and it just shows him kind of, I guess, get the drop on Craven as he falls down, and he's webbing all the men as they're like shooting at him, and he's able to get around.
He's
and as
webbing?
he's dodging,
He's swatting?
webbing the men.
Okay.
What else would you call it?
I don't know. It just caught me off guard.
Webbing?
Webbing the men. It just
Webbing
sounds
the men.
weird. Yeah.
It also sounds like webbing, like he's webbing the men, and he's webbing the men.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's whatever.
So
This should. I love the use of the muted colors and stuff in this thing, but I think it would even be if they had done like a Sin City approach,
with the black
where
and
it's
white.
just red
I'll-
in places and
Well,
things
I
like
think-
that.
I could be wrong. I'm not completely sure on that. I think that there might be a black and white
That's
printing
okay.
somewhere.
Yeah, it's all
I
right.
mean, which would be cool.
It would be cool. I'm just seeing like the red on the screen here. I'm seeing like the thing roaring or whatever. That's the only part you make red.
There's
Just
a
like
lot
Sin
of stuff.
City.
Like there's some Batman black and white that's like
Yeah.
that looks really cool.
Yeah.
They did. I just know from looking at Deadpool that there's like a Deadpool that's black, white, and red, where it's like those are the only three colors
was-
used throughout and stuff.
What was the Batman one where he was like all yellow or all green or whatever? That do you remember that? It was like him and Robin, and it was just a terrible story. I think it was done by Millar, wasn't it? Didn't he do a Batman thing?
Where it was all yellow and green.
Well, it's like there's this one panel in it. I just remember us talking about the fact that it was all one color, and like it was Batman, and it made him look just super weird.
Well, there's the one where it's Frank Miller's All-Star
It was
Batman
Frank
and
Miller.
Robin.
It was Frank Miller.
Where, and I made a short
Because
about this recently, because they paint themselves yellow.
Yeah, because we talked about the decline in Frank Miller is what we talked about.
Yeah,
and
that
there
kinda,
was. It was
that
a
kind of
great
came
decline.
up there.
Yeah.
He's
He's a great artist.
There
Not
was
so much
something
story.
else. Well, and artist and writer. I mean, his Daredevil stuff is fantastic.
Oh, it
The
is,
first
but-
Dark Knight.
At some point, he got hit on the head or something.
No,
don't know.
I think it has to do. We'll talk about it later off
Okay.
screen.
All right. Sorry.
Anyway, so Spider-Man's in. Norman
Oh,
takes
this is the
Felicia
tiger.
and uses her as a hostage.
This
Or
is the
takes her as a
tiger,
hostage.
right? Is this Craven's tiger?
Yes, that's
Okay.
who the tiger
All right.
that burst
Okay.
in is. So Craven's tiger that they were going to feed J. Jonah Jameson to goes to attack, like they release him to attack Jonah.
Sure.
And Spider-Man uses his webbing to kind of like close the tiger's mouth.
Yeah.
We do see as
It's a good use of webbing.
That's true. As Norman, here's what I do like. There's small things that they made that I like that are included in here. Like as Norman's taking her down this trap door, and I just kind of noticed it.
Yeah.
The color scheme, you got the green in there.
Yeah,
with
it's
him.
starting to become
And-
green and purple.
And her, like that looks almost exactly like
Yeah.
Black Cat's suit. Her parka,
Yeah.
like the way it fits. So there's small
Yeah.
little things like
They did
that.
a good job with that stuff.
They did.
How strong is his webbing?
It's not really covered in here, but I think it's like pretty strong.
It's
I mean,
pretty
in this
super
story,
strong,
It's
right?
pretty strong. Yeah.
Like he stops buses and crap with it,
I mean,
right?
there's a time. Yeah. I mean, I think it's different depending on the rider.
That would
but-
be so handy around the house. Like instead of like duct tape, you just like shoot
You-
a cabinet
you
or
say
something.
that, but you have to think like it's sticky all the time.
Oh,
It doesn't dry, does it?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I think it would be very interesting if somebody would tell me the chemical makeup of this webbing that comes out of his arm.
I think there's a book about. Well, I saw a book once. I
Oh, there
haven't read it. I
has to
probably
be.
should. That's about the science of superpowers.
Yeah.
That maybe I need to. It's an
There
old book. Maybe I need to go
absolutely
and-
has to be, I would
So-
think. Because I'm sorry, I know you want to get back, but there's also like a book on cartoon physics. Like I was always interested in the physics that it takes for Wile E. Coyote to run
Yeah.
off a cliff, and he doesn't fall until he looks down.
Well, it's because he doesn't realize he's falling off a cliff.
I get it, but I'm just saying I think the cartoon physics thing is cool, and I would think the same thing with superhero whatever.
Fair enough.
You
No,
know,
there is a book on it on both heroes and villains that I
that's
wanted
cool.
to read.
Yeah, I would love that.
So they're trying to escape through the sewers, and Felicia kind of tells Norman Osborn, like, you're finished. Like, he has all the information on you. He's taken out your gang. Like, you're done. The Spider-Man's, going to take care of you. And about that time, he's like, shut up. Like, I heard what you, like, he's very much like getting angry. And we see like a nice play of like the shadows over there of like him kind of creeping through the shadows.
This is where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come in.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, that's Daredevil.
Oh.
But he kind of pounces on Norman and tells Felicia to run. So now it's just Spider-Man and Norman Osborn left. And I'm saving the page. I'm not going to go to it until I explain it for mine.
I understand.
And so the two of them are wrestling with one another. Yeah, I do. They're wrestling with one another, and Norman tells him, so this is it. It's the itsy-bitsy spider. It gets the drop on the big bad wolf before we bring the curtains down on this charade. But let's just see who's under there. And he grabs the mask. Norman grabs Peter's mask to pull it off. And about that time, we hear a no as Peter grabs at Norman's face to stop him to go. And he grabs his face, and they both kind of unmask at the same time, essentially.
Yeah.
And what you get is we see that Norman sees that obviously it's Peter Parker, Spider-Man, but we see why Norman is now known as the Goblin.
There's a lot of
is
face
because
in this
he
thing.
was born with like some sort of condition that left him
looking like a lizard,
looking like this.
Yeah.
And that's what he tells him. He's like, how about that? It's Urich's punk, after he realizes it's Parker. And he goes, what's the matter, kid? Never been to the freak show? Because all of these, as we've seen, is set at this time. Essentially, Norman and he explains it here because Peter says like, oh, Goblin, that's why. And he tells him, all my life when the other kids threw stones in the freak shows, all my life, now when they say the name, I hear respect. And the few that have the privilege, the very few to see this face, they know one of us is going to die.
Ooh.
That's what it's kind of like a nice little line. And he goes, so how about it, kid? I see it in your eyes now. You got what it takes. He tells him that same line from when he busted in earlier back in issue 2, where he's like, if you want to take care of me, you got to kill me.
It's always kind of creepy to me whenever you see where you can see through their face.
With
like his teeth go
skin.
to here, but then you can see a hole in his cheek.
Oh,
and
like
it's
kind of like the Two-Face cheek.
Well, it's like that, or Crypt Keeper, or whoever.
Crypt Keeper is one for sure too.
Yeah.
I hated that guy.
The Crypt Keeper?
Yeah,
because of his jokes or what?
Huh?
Because of his jokes or what?
No, I mean they weren't great too. Well, I was a kid when that came out, and so he just freaked me out. Oh well, I think it was
puppet.
age.
He's a puppet, right?
That makes him freakier. And so he sits there and they wrestle the gun away, and Norman kind of sits it and points it out himself, and he's like, come on, kid, go ahead, pull the trigger, be a hero. And we get flashbacks like Peter remembers or thinks about Jameson gunning down Urich.
Yeah.
He thinks about finding his Uncle Ben. He thinks about Aunt May, who's like, I don't want to live in a world where people kill one another like animals.
Oh, my God. Just shoot
and
him
so
in the
Peter
face.
just tells him no. And he gives him the gun back. And he tells him, I'm not going to take that's easy for you, Osborn. You're going to stand trial. You put me in, the Goblin tells him, you put me in a courtroom, you don't get a trial. It's just going to be just this crazy sideshow type thing.
He handed him the gun back? Is that what
see
you
that?
just said?
He tells him no. See, he has the gun, and it's there.
There's a fine line here, right? I understand not wanting to take a human/goblin life, but you don't give him the damn weapon back.
Well, and so that's the thing. He's like, you can't do that. It'll turn into a spectacle and a sideshow, and I'm done with those. And so he goes to shoot Peter, and Peter uses his webbing to take the gun and throw it away.
Well, just don't give it back to him.
Well,
Peter,
and, web it up. That is true. That would have been a simple way not to
just don't give it back.
But then
you're in the damn sewer. Throw it. I mean,
so the Goblin kind of tells him, "Nobody puts me in a cage. Nobody
backs me in."
And we hear a sound all of a sudden, and it's like, what? And about those time, all of those spiders from earlier come down.
Oh, wow.
Because they've escaped from the cage and all the chaos upstairs, and they kind of just devour
a lot of spiders.
The Goblin, as he's like, no. And that's done for Norman Osborn.
Do you see him die?
I mean, we get that, yeah.
Okay. So he's not
I
dead.
haven't read the sequel. I haven't read it.
That's what I'm saying. He's not dead, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would be cool is if he gets spider powers from this also.
Oh, and then you get a spider goblin? That was a thing, I think.
That's
I
what
think
I'm
there's
saying.
been a spider goblin.
Yeah.
So then we flash forward 2 months later, and
she
it's
definitely
Felicia.
has that black cat suit on now.
Well, I mean, it's all white. Yeah,
But you know what
it
I'm
looks-
saying.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that down in that bottom panel, she looks like Black Cat.
She does. And so she's reading about all the corruption charges that have been brought against like 17 high-ranking police officers. Like essentially everything that Ben had papers on, Peter went and printed, and it's been released.
Sure.
And about that time, Spider-Man shows up and goes, "Do you always read alone when you're alone?" Like, because she's reading like the headline out loud.
Yeah.
And she goes, "I'm not alone, am I?" Like she knew he was there. And then she tells him, "You can go ahead and take that ridiculous mask off too." To which he's like, "Oh, you don't like him?" And she goes, "Why are you here, Peter?" And he just says, "I can't get it out of my head what the goblin said about you and him." Like just talking about, I forgot I didn't go into all the side stairs. But he says, do you leave? Oh my goodness. When they printed the book here for the small one, the words go right
it's
down
right
the
in the-
spine.
right in
And
the
so I'm like
thing.
having to
Yeah.
like pull apart. But Peter asks, he's like, "Did you leave Ben like for the goblin?" Because there was obviously some sort of relationship
Sure.
between the two of them. And Felicia goes, "What happened between me and Norman Osborn? It's long and complicated, and it's none of your business." To which he just kind of looks and he's like, "All right, well, I found something among Ben's papers that I thought you should have." And it's just this nice little picture of the two of them together.
Oh, okay.
As he sits there and he jumps out the window. Like she looks at it and she looks back up and he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it takes us to our last page that just essentially says, "The long, cold winters has finally ended. The goblin and his cronies are dead or in custody. Roosevelt is in the White House because, I mean, we're
Yeah.
around that time. And J. Jonah Jameson is once more sounding the clarion call for liberty and equality from every newsstand in the city. It looks like nothing but good times ahead. Even so, Aunt May is still on her soapbox, still fighting for the rights of the common people." It also talks about how there's power growing overseas, and it talks about Nazis because comic books love to talk about Nazis.
They do.
And then it says, "But it's okay because there will always be good guys to kind of go and fight." And it ends with, "And in the end, when all is said and done, good guys always win." And that's where it closes
That is
out.
not true, but
on the
nice
end of
way to
that
end a
story.
comic book. Yep.
And so that was
See, because that
Spider-Man
right there,
Noir.
that right there, right?
Yeah.
The black panel, blue smoke. That's cool.
Looks cool.
Love it.
As we look at the back, I think they have some of the
Oh wow, yeah. Oh yeah,
variant
yeah.
covers
See,
for it.
That's Sin City right there. Is what that
it
is. Yeah.
That's like
Ooh.
the original idea they had for the suit and stuff. We're just flipping through the back of the collected edition out here for Mike to look
That is
at
kind of cool though.
character designs and stuff like that. There is the hat in the design. We didn't see it anywhere in the comic, but it is in the Spider-Verse movies. But there you go. So that is Spider-Man Noir here on Bros, Foes, and Heroes. Figured we,
It's a good story.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. We did something
It's a
good.
decent story.
Here's the thing. We're going to do something good next week, too, because...
You say it like you're surprised.
Well, no. Like, I just feel like people enjoy some of the ridiculous, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they just like hearing us talk about comics.
No, I don't.
No, I think
doubt
they like
that's
the
it.
ridiculous
Yeah, I
one
doubt
too.
that's it, yeah.
Anyway,
This is
but
a poll though.
it was a poll. We
So
put
the
up to
poll
vote,
winner.
so we're listening to the people, all 2,000 plus of you that have voted, and we're going to do Hellboy: Seeds of Destruction next week, which is the first kind of 5 issues of Hellboy. Not the first appearance. I found out first appearance was in a San Diego Comic-Con preview. It's just
wow.
like
Really?
4 pages of the introduction to the character.
Huh.
So that'll be. I
like
might
the
go ahead
character.
and
I
cover
think
that
the
then too.
character's
It's
cool.
all black and white, but it's really cool.
I like the character. I
Yeah,
think it's
so
very
we'll
cool.
go ahead and dive into Hellboy next week.
Wait,
as I
so
say
it's all
something
black
like
and white?
No, not the story.
The one from the Comic-Con.
The 4-page. The
Gotcha.
first story.
Gotcha.
Um,
That was thinking like a Teenage Mutant Ninja
Teenage
Turtles thing,
Mutant
like when they first
Ninja
started the black and
Turtles.
white
Yeah, with
comics
Eastman and
stuff.
Laird.
Because it was cheap.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, black and white comics were also big in the like.
They were.
They had a resurgence. You know, there was a
There were
I
too
read
many
about,
of them, honestly. They really were.
like Marvel, the UK publications. I think it's the Mighty World of Marvel or something like
Yeah.
that. Would print like black and white reprints of like the old Marvel stories there in like the 70s and stuff.
Well, you
too.
know what's in black and white that you love?
What's that?
Sweet meat. That was in there.
I think out of everything we've read,
Yeah. That's the worst.
that is
Mm-hmm.
my worst comic I've ever read.
I would read Black Condor 5 times over.
Dude, Black Condor was entertaining.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, he even pretended to be some. Well, I say that like it's wrong. he pretended to be a senator and like pretended to be this
woman's
fiance.
Yeah, and she didn't even know.
And but her father knew and went along with it.
Yep. It's rough.
Weird. But anyway.
My favorite part is I'm going to fly now, and he just
does it. Anyway, we got a lot of great stuff in our back catalog you can go listen to.
Oh, yeah, please
Hellboy coming up. We'll go ahead. I don't know if we'll do another poll. We'll try to do something silly. Some more Silver Age stuff. I know people like the Silver Age stuff, too. So we have a lot of great things on the horizon that we'll get to. But as always.
Don't do the Sergeant Rock thing. Just throw it on the poll and see if people like it.
I'll throw out another poll then for what we can see for the week after that for Hellboy.
That'd be cool.
But as always, thank you guys for taking the time out to watch and or listen. Thanks. Or if you have the time, make sure to check out Rogue Media Network and the other Rogue Media Network family podcasts.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
And until next time, stay safe, everybody.
Golly.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.